What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Up in Flames, and this is one of the greatest episodes I'll probably ever record. For the simple fact, in my lifetime, I think that this was the Cowboys' third, possibly fourth playoff win in my entire lifetime. I'm 27 years old. Wow. I've witnessed 4 playoff wins, not 4 playoff wins in the same season. 4 playoff wins in my lifetime. That means we average a playoff win every 7 years. And we were able to pull it out. But before we get into all that, before I go on my slight little rant, it won't even be that long, I promise. I got my guy in the building, Chris LeBron, president of Off the Ball Network, the man with the plan, the man that made all of this happen, host of the Off the Ball podcast, host of the Get a Bucket podcast, and one of the greatest guests you can have when he has the time to make a guest appearance. You always have to accept him on the show. Chris, what's going on, bro?
Hey, bro, what's going on? I know we're feeling good right now. Both our teams advanced to the next round. A lot of people doubted our teams. But I'm excited to hop on and talk football. It's a good time to be a football fan right now.
Yeah, so before we get into that, like we always got to start the show, we'll be back right after the intro.
Warning, you are now listening to Up in Flames.
We up in flames, yeah. We up in flames, yeah. Yeah.
Let me hear it, Lambo.
We up in flames. We up in flames. We up in flames. Yeah, we up in flames. Yeah. Yeah. We up in flames. Yeah. Yeah. We up in flames. Hold on. Check this go. We up in flames. Yeah. We up in. Yeah. We up in flames. Yeah. Woo. We up in. Yeah. We up in flames. We up in flames.
Once again, we are back. Another edition of Up in Flames. So, as Chris said, we're both feeling really good. His team won a playoff game this year. In a year that there was less expectations and more evaluation to see what the day ball era is going to look like. And instead, they're playing in the divisional round. We'll talk about what that means for the Giants. I think as much good as that is, I think it could be bad, but not in the worst way. But we'll get into that in a second. But we're going to talk about my Cowboys. Chris, you can respond. I just have a couple things to say. So Dallas won the playoff game all last week and all day Monday because we played on Monday night. So we had to wake up and hear all the talk shows and all the predictions solely about the Cowboys and the Bucks. That's what Monday was about. Everybody was in Tampa, especially for ESPN. Everybody was in Tampa. It was an event. You would have almost thought ESPN was hosting the Super Bowl this year. That's how big this game was, at least the lead up to it. And I'm not trying to oversell the Cowboys or the Bucks, but the brand of the Cowboys, the brand of Tom Brady, not the Tampa Bay Bucks, the Tampa Brady Bucks, is what made this game, like, that's what made it all world. That's probably what made them put it on a standalone game on Monday night. Was a simple fact. It's the Dallas Cowboys, Jerry Jones, it's Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. How much more star power can you get than the star on the side of the helmet and the GOAT of all GOATs himself, Tom Brady? Mm-hmm. We go on the road. We're not even going to break down the game. We smack the Tampa Bay Bucks. And I've let you Bucks fans live over the past couple days. I let you Bucks fans live over the past couple days, but we smacked y'all. But my biggest problem I had is we wake up on Tuesday. And I don't always listen to Get Up and First Take and all that, but I just couldn't wait for all the Cowboys doubters to have to answer to that performance by Dak Prescott. And I didn't want anybody to overreact. I didn't want everybody to say Dak Prescott is now Patrick Mahomes territory. That I didn't want. But what I did want was a little bit of respect put on his name. The same people, and I took it to account, especially these national media people in the chat, the same people that picked Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Bucks to beat the Dallas Cowboys now backtracked and was like, oh, but let's see how you look against San Francisco, because now all of a sudden we're throwing in the fact that the Bucks are 8-9. Now it doesn't matter. We're going to change the narrative and talk about how cooked Tom Brady is as opposed to how great Dallas played. Instead of giving Dallas credit for maybe they're the reason why Tom Brady looked cooked. There was nothing he could do against that pass rush. And that's okay. There's a lot of teams that would have beat the Tampa Bay Bucks. So I'm not priding like we beat a team that we shouldn't have beat. We should have beat them. But going into the game, Chris, I'm a Cowboys fan in January. You only get but so excited until it's over with or until we put the game away, which people wanted to panic when Julio Jones scored the touchdown and it was 24-7. It was like, starts. And I was like, no, they just finally got something. We weren't gonna shut out the Bucs. We were gonna give one up. And we gave one up, and ultimately they scored another touchdown. But after the first 4 drives, 2 offensive drives from both teams, after that, and Dallas scored and stopped Tampa, the game seemed like it was never going to be close because Dallas scored again, and you started seeing the bad luck shake a little bit. They're scoring touchdowns, and the kicker's missing every extra point. So you're up 18-0 instead of being up 21-0, and you're like, this is Dallas right here. Even as a Cowboys fan, you're like, no matter how great we play, there's got to be something that makes you think it's going to fall apart at some point. By midway through the third quarter, I was like, the game's over. Like, they're not coming back. They have not played good enough to just flip a switch. Our pass rush killed Tom Brady enough. There was just no switch that they were going to flip. But I just had to get that off as far as like, oh, now everything has to be proven against San Francisco. Do we need to prove some things? Yes. Will it help Dak if he wins this game on Sunday night? 100%. Do you start changing the conversation about the Cowboys, at least for this year? 100%. We're not saying if they win this game, they're a dynasty, but it changes the narrative a little bit. They were able to get over the hump. First NFC Championship appearance since the 90s. Like, all that could possibly happen under Dak Prescott, which would then answer a lot of questions. But Dak answered, to me, a lot of questions on Sunday. And I told you before the show, Dak's played 4 playoff games, so not a big sample size. But in 3 of those 4 games, he played really good. Only last year against San Francisco is where you could point and be like, Dak had a bad performance in the playoffs. Other than that, and really he played 5 because he's won. He's went 3 in the first round in advance. So he'll be on, like, what would this be, his 5th or 6th? He's played 4 at least, but he's never played bad. Like, when the Cowboys have lost, except last year, he didn't really play good and still put his team in position to possibly win. A lot of things happen and bonehead moves at the end. But either way, Dak is not a bad playoff performer. It's just the Cowboys are Cowboy. The Cowboys in January. We know what that looks like. So, Chris, what did you think about the game? You don't even have to go in detail. Just what you think about the Cowboys. Like, were they impressive? Did they at least impress you? Did they surprise you with how good they played?
It wasn't surprising. I mean, I think the only reason why people were skeptical about the Cowboys is because it's the Cowboys in the playoffs, you know, and just that narrative. And then you're playing against Tom Brady, and regardless of how good or bad they've been this season, and for the most part, the Bucs were underwhelming this year. One of the more disappointing teams in the NFL, regardless, even though they won the division. You were like, okay, it's still Tom Brady. It's the Cowboys aura the last 25 years of choking in the playoffs. That would be the only reason why people would pick Tampa Bay, in my opinion. But if we're just talking X's and O's, Cowboys are a better team all around. They're 100% just a better football team. Offensive line's better. The run game's better. Defensive line's better. Secondary, everything's better. Like, the matchup just on paper, like, you're like, Dallas should win this by, you know, whatever the spread was. They should win that. 7.5, 10 points. They should win by double digits. They should. They're just a better football team. And we saw that early on. And it showed it. And even when Tampa scored that touchdown and you saw the tweets and people are like, here we go. And it's like, I'm a, you know me, I'm a big Tom Brady fan. I love Tom Brady. Even I was like, this doesn't have that feel of like, oh, wow, Tom could get this team back. It never had that feel.
It was more like, oh, they're just not going to get shut out. Like, to me, that touchdown was more like, okay, at least we're not getting shut out today.
But it's just like, because we've seen Tom do this before. So, like, it doesn't matter at any point in the game. He scores a touchdown. It's just people are just going to have like, oh, is this the Falcons? Because we've seen it. You know, we saw that. We saw him come back. But this never had that feel. We knew their play calling, like, they just weren't going to. They weren't going to follow that game plan of just like throw the ball and, you know, give Tampa Bay any chance to come back. They did the right. They ran the ball, some short passes and all that. And they were able to capitalize it, and they dominated on all aspects. You know, the run game of Tampa Bay has been non-existent all year, and they continued that. So Tom Brady had to throw the ball, 1 billion times. And, you know, I'll take those chances. And that was the game plan. And they got to Tom, they got him fidgety and all that, and it was just good offensive game calling and who's the defensive coordinator again? You guys defensive coordinator again? Dan Quinn. I mean, I know people sour on him because of what happened in Atlanta and like how he went about that Super Bowl, because imagine if they did win that, how people's perception of him changes.
He would be the defensive coordinator in Dallas.
He would not be the defensive coordinator. He probably still is, because that buys you, winning a Super Bowl buys you a long time. And I feel like he deserves another opportunity, because I really thought he was a good head coach. I just think the management kind of messed up, at the end with the salary cap and all that. But I feel like he deserves to be a head coach, because he's done a hell of a job with his defense. Hell of a job with his defense. And I this is a different Cowboys team. This isn't the same. In my opinion, this isn't the same old Cowboys. I could joke around and all that and chat and all that and fun, because I'm a Giants fan and you guys are rivals.
You're gonna talk your noise regardless.
You're gonna talk, and it's all in fun and games and all that. But like, this Cowboys team's really good. This is a really good Cowboys team, and like I think Dak gets way. It comes with the territory. It's like being the shortstop of the Yankees. It's like being the star of the Los Angeles Lakers. Being the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys comes with a lot of scrutiny. Tony Romo dealt with it. I'm sure Troy Aikman dealt with it. Troy
Aikman was winning. He ain't dealt with too much.
He didn't deal with too much, but I'm sure when they didn't win, they got on him because they were expected to win every year. So that happens. With the Yankees, it happens. We haven't won since 2009, and you would think we haven't won since 100 years. But it's just how those fan bases, when you used to winning, you expect to win every year. So like, that gets probably too much flack. I think he gets way too much flack. There's teams that would kill to have a Dak Prescott. There was teams that would kill to have a Dak Prescott.
The problem is to me, Dak is a very good quarterback. I've always stayed on where I feel about Dak. He's very good. He's not Mahomes. He's not Josh Allen. He's not Joe Burrow. He's not as talented as Justin Herbert. Those top 5 to 7 guys, like, the Lamar Jackson, like, okay, that's cool. But my biggest thing where I felt about Dak is you can't tell me that Nick Foles can win a Super Bowl. You can't tell me that Jimmy Garoppolo can reach a Super Bowl in multiple NFC championships. You can't tell me that Minnesota can at least win a playoff game with Case Keenum. Like, there's so many examples. You can't tell me, and even go back, like Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl. Like, there have been teams who have either won a Super Bowl or made it with average to above average quarterback play without a superstar on the other side. Now, maybe the superstar prevailed. Mahomes beats Jimmy G in the Super Bowl. But like, as a Dallas fan, like, you would kill to get beat like that in the Super Bowl because you haven't seen it. Like, somebody like me hasn't seen it in my lifetime. So like, to lose like that, but to reach the Super Bowl and reach a couple of years later another NFC championship, like, you'll take seasons like that and then critique how you want to critique and point at the small improvements. But and Dak has never done it. I understand that. But to say that he can't do it, he'll never do it, and maybe he won't do it this year. We got a tough opponent, and we'll talk about the opponent without the Dallas factor. We'll just talk about San Francisco here a little later on a couple different things. But he does. I don't think he has a lot to prove. It's just like, the stakes are higher. Can you play like that again? And then when if you do play like that again and you win, and the stakes are higher, can you play like that again? And eventually, like, hey, only one team can win the championship. But if we make the NFC championship, or if we were to go to the Super Bowl and lose, then you can't tell me that's a bad season. Teams who go to the Super Bowl and they lose, like, that's not, oh, we just had no success. Like, oh, so that's my thing with Dak. So we were talking about Tom Brady, and I'm not going to kill Brady on how he looks cooked, but I asked the question in the chat, and this is going to lead in. Didn't get a lot of answers back, and I think that's because it's a rough conversation to have, because you are talking about the greatest quarterback of all time, and you have to tread lightly on how you talk about somebody who's been so great, even when their time is running out. But my only problem is, and it wouldn't be Up in Flames if we didn't do it, is why is it that we tread so lightly with when we start to see Tom Brady's cooked, but boy, we don't mind laying it on a LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers and how bad they are, even though he's playing so great. I'm just saying. Like we tread lightly with Tom Brady. Think he still has that magic. Oh, LeBron's cooked. He can't do it. So anyway, I just had to bring up LeBron. It's Up in Flames. That's what we do. So
but you know what? Then in that regards, I think it's more of LeBron chasing Jordan, and I think people are afraid that for the first time since when did Jordan retire? 2003?
Yeah.
2003, but like 98. He retired in 98. Like
the Wizards. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
He's still good, but whatever. But I think people are afraid to say or to realize that he might have passed MJ. And if you think that, that's cool. I don't.
Yeah, it's like not to have that debate.
Tom Brady, like I think people have I don't think like Joe Montana technically, like I think most people would say he.
But Joe Montana fans are that same way and won't even give up the fact that.
But it's not as loud as Michael Jordan fans with LeBron.
Because Montana ain't Jordan at the end of the day. Like that's why Montana ain't Jordan.
Because with Tom Brady, he's over 500 in Super Bowls, right? He has 7 and he's lost 3.
Yeah.
With LeBron, he has 4, but he's lost 6, right? So people will look at the numbers and be like, well, he's lost 6. There's no way he could be better than than Jordan, where people with Joe Montana will be like, well, yeah, Joe Montana never lost in the Super Bowl, but Tom Brady's been to 11, has been to 10, and has won.
And won 7. He has more and has been to more.
He has more. He's been to more, and he has 3 more Super Bowls, where LeBron James has less championships than Michael Jordan and is under 500, even though we all know.
Yeah, I mean,
we understand that he had to go against the Warriors in a few, and some of those teams did not even deserve to be in the finals, but that's for another story.
Yeah, but of course I understand
the argument.
Yeah, back to Brady. So Brady's probably going to play another year. We're going to assume right now. We're not even going to talk retirement. We're going to assume he's another year.
I thought he would retire. I legit thought he was done last year.
I didn't.
I thought it was it.
When he announced his retirement, here's why I didn't think it. Before every game, Tom Brady, he's got a production company. He posts a video. After every game, he posts a video. Win, loss, whatever, back to the drawing board. But he gives you like inside, like, and so for him to type up his retirement on his iPhone on notes, that just didn't seem like how Tom Brady would want to go out. Like, that was just me. Like, I'm like, I don't think he's really retiring. Like, it sounds good and it's cool and I would understand, but he went out a little too quiet for me to be like the GOAT of the GOAT of a sport, or the GOAT of a position at the very least, and who somebody who's been as great as him and has shown us this production company and the inside of it. Like, he's just not going out like that. And it wasn't about the winning or losing. It was just about the way he announced his retirement. So he's not retiring. We're just under the assumption, we're not going to get into what happens if he retires. We know he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. They'll probably let him in without having to wait. If they did that,
he shouldn't have to wait. If there was ever a time, there was ever a player that you just say, all right, we don't need to wait. What is it, 4 or 5 years?
Because we know he's first ballot. We know he's getting in. So if they let him in next year and they put him on the ballot, if he were to retire, but we're assuming he's staying. The list so far, rumors and reports and whatever, and people close to these situations or to these teams, is right now it seems like the Dolphins, the Raiders, Dolphins, Raiders.
He's supposed to be a Dolphin, right? That was supposed to happen.
Yeah, like he was already supposed to be a Dolphin, but like Dolphins, Raiders, and there's another team out there that none of those 3 teams make sense. And Dolphins, here's why I say, like, Tom Brady, look, there's a couple of reasons why. He looked cooked on Monday night. And I'm not talking about that he can't play. I think he was second in pass yards this year. So he was producing numbers, but they weren't winning. Tom Brady was the quarterback of a team that went 8-9 in the worst division in football. Tom Brady was a team who, if there was anybody he could have got, it was Dallas, and he didn't do it. He didn't look good. If there was any way to take advantage of a bad season, it was against the Dallas Cowboys. He wasn't able to do it. He threw the ball 66 times. He barely completed 50% of his passes. If he even did, but I know if so, it was like 1 or 2 passes over where he's barely over 50%. Through 2 touchdowns? So when I look at Tom Brady, it made me raise the question. Does it matter where Tom Brady goes? And I know you're going to say, I'm going to let you say it, but there's one team that you're going to say that, yes, it would make all the sense in the world, but I have hella pushback on it because of the possibilities of what this team could look like in 2 weeks from now. But Does it if we talk about the teams on the list, like the Raiders and the Dolphins, does it matter if Tom Brady goes to Miami or Vegas? Do you look at them as Super Bowl contenders now? Because I don't. I damn sure don't think neither of those teams are a Tom Brady away. The defense was getting lit up in Vegas and in Miami. Like, their pieces and maybe a strong draft in a Tom Brady, but I just don't see Tom Brady being able. Bro, most of the young quarterbacks are in the AFC, and all these teams are in the AFC right now. Most of the young quarterbacks are in the AFC. Like, I just don't see him. He can't move worth a lick. Their offensive line needs some work, probably a little more work than the money they got in salary cap and draft capital to work right away. You're only going to get a year or two of Tom Brady. So does it really matter what team gets Tom Brady? Like, does it really?
I mean, I think for the we talked before. I think the 49ers are a dark horse team, depending on what happens this week. Because I think with Jimmy G, like they have, all right, so we have the 3 quarterbacks, right? We know it's Jimmy G, who, we've seen him go to the Super Bowl, seen him win games, but it feels like they may be capped out with him. Like, there's a reason why they went after Trey Lance. And maybe they did go after Tom Brady. They tried to go for Tom because they felt like, well, he didn't make the plays in the Super Bowl to help us win. We were up, and he didn't make those superstar plays from a quarterback you need to take that next level. So,
right.
And then they decided Trey Lance. Now, Trey Lance, we still don't know what Trey Lance is because he didn't play. And then when he played, he got hurt in, the second game he played. So we really don't even know what Trey Lance is. Now, with Brock Purdy, it's how much of it is okay. We just everything around them is clicking. The run game's clicking. We got the tight ends, our tight ends healthy, our receivers are making plays. Debo, Ayuk, everyone's making play. The defense is just helping him out, and that's why he's 7-0 as a quarterback, whatever, 6-0, 7-0. So, but what happens if Brock Purdy looks like a 7th round pick who was the last pick in the draft? What if he looks like Mr. Irrelevant next week against Dallas? Because he's going against Dallas. It's not the Seattle Seahawks. It's not whoever you play in the regular season. You're playing the Dallas Cowboys. You're playing a real team. You're playing against a really good defense, a Dan Quinn defense. And what if he looks like a rookie and he throws for 170 yards and 2-3 interceptions and you lose by double digits? What if they're like, you know what? Forget Trey Lance, forget Jimmy G. Because we already tried to get rid of Jimmy G. The only reason he played is because Lance got hurt. There's a guy that we trust, and we know if we put him here, he ain't gonna make the mistakes. We don't have to worry about him not making the play because he's done it plenty of times. That's to me the idea. They have the run game he needs. Because if you're Tom Brady and you're looking for a team, you're like, okay, I can't deal what I did with the last 2 years with absolutely no run game. I can't throw the ball 60 times. I am 65 years old. I am old. Like, I need a run game so I can throw it 30 and be more productive, be more efficient as a player. I don't have to sling it. He still can do it, but that's not what he can't carry like he used to. So what better situation to go to where you got McCaffrey, you got Elijah Mitchell in the backfield, and then short passes, you have your Gronk and Kittle. That's the biggest thing. He didn't have his Gronk. When Gronk left, that was a big void in the middle of the field because they tried with OJ Howard. That didn't work out. Who was the other guy they had? He was hurt in and out, and you have your weapons outside. So to me, that's and then dump it off to your James White is McCaffrey, who's someone you can hand it off to also. So like, it just, to me, that's the perfect fit for him. But it all depends on what happens. If they win the Super Bowl, then probably this isn't going to happen, and they'll continue to rock with Brock Purdy or Trey Lance or whatever. I think it's going to be Brock Purdy and Lance are going to battle it out in camp. But if it doesn't happen and they get whooped, or they lose by 10, or they lose because of the quarterback, TB12, I'm going to say it here, will be the starting quarterback. It's his hometown team. He loves the 49ers. I think he wanted to be a Niner. I know I think he really wanted to be a Niner, but that, Jimmy was there and cap wise and all that, but I think he will be the quarterback if they lose this week. He will be the starting quarterback because it's just a perfect fit. And
So-
then all you do is insert the greatest quarterback of all time who could still throw the thing, and you add him. I mean, the 49ers are a Super Bowl favorite next year.
So under that circumstance is the only way I see it being possible.
Only that, I mean, it's a crazy circumstance. It needs a lot has to happen. But
Really,
to me,
all it takes is Brock Purdy to have a bad game. But then,
but
like,
what,
if Brock Purdy
but what
has,
if they lose? But Brock has a good. I think it has to be Brock Purdy looking like a 7th round, last pick in the draft rookie.
I don't think he's going to do that.
I don't think it's going to happen. But that's what I think is going to take for the 49ers to be like, okay, we're in win now mode. The 49ers are win now. That's why I think they're like they're with Purdy and Lance, like they're I think they tried it with Lance to try to hit lightning in the bottle, whatever that saying is, thinking that he was going to be Patrick Mahomes and thinking, okay, let him sit a year 2, boom, he takes off. And I think that's what they were thinking, and not realizing that, guess what? Not everyone is Patrick Mahomes. You know, it's I think and we talked about this with quarterbacks, like everyone thinks that everybody wants to have their Patrick Mahomes. Everybody wants to have the Josh Allen. Everybody's looking for that guy. And that's why we kind of see quarterbacks go so high and maybe higher than what they really should be. And like Jeff mentioned this, and this stays in my head a lot. Jeff mentioned is like, why don't we treat quarterbacks the same way we treat other positions? Why don't we draft them accordingly instead of way over? It's the one position that gets overdrafted immensely. We might see a tackle go 10 picks high. We see quarterbacks who are probably late first rounders, second rounders go top 5. And we just saw the Jets. Zach Wilson was not a top 2 pick. If you had taken him later in the first round, the heat on him wouldn't be as high. You're allowed to develop him more, and there's no pressure. You take him 2, now the pressure is immense, and now you kind of killed him before he even got to play. Regardless if he could play or not, you hurt him because now you're forced to play him. And now look what you're getting. Now you're like, well, this guy's not even our starting quarterback. So like everyone's trying to find that. And like, if you're 49ers, you're win now mode. You traded for McCaffrey. Kittle is always hurt. He might not have a few more. The defense, this is win now mode. What's the ultimate win now quarterback that's going to be available? There ain't no one else. No Derek Carr. No Tannehill. None of that garbage. Go get Tom Brady and go win a Super Bowl next year. It doesn't mess around. Like they're in win now mode. Like it's not building. Like they try with Trey Lance. No. Go get Tom next year if things go south this year.
I hear that. But my thing is right now, you're in a good position with 3 different quarterbacks. Obviously, I think you're moving on from Jimmy G. A lot of people are going to be inquiring about his services, and he's a free agent. So now you have to figure out. I mean, I think this weekend could determine a lot about whether you continue on with Brock Purdy or Trey Lance kind of walks back into a starting job. But really, no matter what happens, Trey Lance is the biggest loser of all this for the simple fact, like
massive loser. Like
they won. Brock Purdy looked good in his first playoff game. So we now know we have an evaluation of what he looks like in the playoffs at the very least. And if he plays good against Dallas, and let's say Dallas wins, he plays good though. Like we know that's 2 games we've seen him in the playoffs and he looked good. And then now you're like, we have so many questions about Trey Lance. And if he comes in and they're going to be battling, I think on the field, like if you're just solely focused on who looks like the better quarterback, Trey Lance may look like the better quarterback. He's going to wow you with his talent. But Brock Purdy has shown you in the regular season and in the playoffs, like his record, if he loses to Dallas, he'll have 1 loss on his record. He's looked good and he's never looked bad. I'll put it like that. Whether he looked great or really good, he never has looked bad. He's done everything that San Francisco has asked him to do to the best of his ability, and it's resulted in nothing but winning. And so now Trey Lance will go into next year, and let's say they don't get Brady, and it's a quarterback battle. Trey Lance, to me, talent-wise, if I'm just looking at who's more talented, I think I could do more things with him, Trey Lance is going to win that battle. But the minute he plays bad, and I'm talking week 1, I'm talking about week 1 of preseason, let them be in the Hall of Fame game and he gets the first couple snaps and nothing comes of it, they already going to be looking to move the Purdy and let him be the week 1 starter of the NFL and they lose. I don't care if they play a great team or not. If they lose, they'll be like, this wasn't happening with Brock Purdy, which because we are going to talk about your Giants for a second. I can't have a Giants fan on and not give the credit. But I said I was going to close this out, but we all in San Francisco right now. So I got a question for you. Are we, and it has nothing to do with Dallas as opposed to, it's from a Dallas standpoint for me as far as analyzing my opponent and looking at what to expect and knowing that this team is really good. But then you start, are we sure we're not overrating the San Francisco 49ers? And I'm not saying that if you rate them correct, that you could still come away with that they're better than Dallas. But what I'm saying is they're this juggernaut. We're putting them in the Super Bowl already. It is very possible. They very well could beat Dallas and go to the Super Bowl. But are we overrating them with these kind of expectations already when really I get Brock Purdy is a great story. He's won a lot of games. He looks really good. He could shred Dallas. I do understand all that. But they've played nobody in this win streak. The last good team they played. And I say good because at the time when they played was Kansas City and it was a loss. They go on a 3-game losing streak. They went on a 10-game win streak or whatever it was. Their last loss was against the Chiefs. Bro, they haven't played nobody. Their next best team that they've played was Miami. Miami was on a bad stretch of football at that time, just getting Tua back. So it wasn't even the same Miami team. Outside of that, these are their wins since losing to the Chiefs. And I want you to name me a really great win because we could pick it all apart. And I know they beat the Rams. Who cares? They beat the Chargers. They were borderline a playoff team, and then we seen what happened when they get in the playoffs. So who cares? Cardinals definitely don't care. Saints definitely don't care. Dolphins, I'll give you enough credit there. 35-7 on the Bucks. Don't care. The Cowboys did the same thing, and you're telling me it was an overrated win. Not you, but people are telling me it was an overrated win, so I'm not giving them credit there. Beat the Seahawks. All right, that's a playoff team, but we seen what happened when they played them in the playoffs. Commanders, decent at best, and it's not a playoff team, but they were a team that could shock them at best. Like that was considered a trap game. Raiders, trash, and you went into overtime with
Commanders game was I think like a touchdown game, for most of
it, and then they pulled off.
It was a football game
they pulled off because they were the better team. Then the Raiders, you go into overtime. The Raiders scored 34 points on your defense because everybody's like their defense could never have gotten got. All right, Patrick Mahomes has picked their defense apart. You know who else did? Jarrett Stidham. I'm just saying. Like Jarrett Stidham put 34 points on that defense and takes them into overtime. Could be considered a trap game, fall asleep. You're going to walk out there as Jarrett Stidham starting. I get it. But the Dallas Cowboys would get killed for going into overtime with Jarrett Stidham. And then you go and you finish your season playing against the Cardinals again, and you had something to play for. So you played your starters most of the game. Are we so sure? And they look good against Seattle again. Are we sure we're not just overrating a little bit of how dominant they were against, for the most part, bad teams? Like these are top 10 pick teams for most of them that they beat.
I think, yeah, in a way we've kind of overrated them simply because they've been on a win streak and they're doing it with the 7th round. So like that adds to the mystique of like the record.
I give them their credit.
Had this been Jimmy G, I don't think maybe we're as high, but I just think the story of Brock Purdy being the last pick in the draft adds to the whole, them being good. And then they have looked, yes, there's some close games in there, but they have looked good and they're healthy. I think that's another thing is they're healthy. That's the biggest thing because we all know the healthiest team most likely is going to be, be at the end and get to the Super Bowl. And they're healthy right now for it's because what's the one thing we talked about with the 49ers for years?
Yeah, they've been injured and they lose this guy and that guy.
Lose Kittle, they lose this guy, they lose that guy, their quarterback's hurt, running back gets hurt, Bosa's hurt, somebody's hurt, somebody's significance is hurt. There's no one obviously the quarterbacks, but
the way he's played, I think that's canceled out.
The way he's played, we can't really bring that in because he's playing good football. But we all know how this works, right? What are 49er fans going to say if they lose this game? Well, we had our 3rd string quarterback. I don't think you can use the argument right now because you were saying that you had him for these last, whatever amount of games he's played and you played good with him and you're still a Super Bowl team. So you can't use that as excuse if he falters in this game. So, it's yes, I think in a way we have overrated, but they're going against a Cowboys team that's good, man. Like they're good. And if there's a team that they haven't played a team, in my opinion, defensively as good as the Cowboys. The Cowboys can make you look silly. Yes, the Cowboys can sometimes shoot themselves in the foot. We saw that in the Jacksonville game. Like it's like, sometimes they revert back to being the Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
But when the Cowboys are right, they can whoop that ass.
Mm-hmm.
They can make you look silly on both ends of the line of scrimmage. So, and the 49ers are a very physical team, but the Dallas Cowboys can be very physical. Let's not underestimate how physical the Cowboys can be.
At this point, and even midway, I know the thing with the Cowboys, and I don't want to make this about the Cowboys as much 49ers, but they are playing each other, is the second half of the season, a lot of the star talent kind of fell off a little bit. Dak throwing a lot of interceptions. You're not hearing Michael Parsons or Trayvon Diggs' name being called on defense as much as you'd like, but they still get physical. Like, and some other guys have stepped up. Like DeMarcus Lawrence has played well when Michael Parsons wasn't. Dante Fowler Jr. has made some plays. Our corners they at least stepped up the other day. Like, they stepped up on Monday.
Yeah, they played solid.
Better. Diggs did what he needed to do as expected, but but when I look at San Francisco, bro, I know they're really good. I know that, but we're talking about them like they are Kansas City, like they are Buffalo, and they very well could. But I think just as much as you would throw the pressure on the Cowboys and Dak this week on Sunday night, I think there's got to be that much pressure because you can't give San Francisco all this credit. Tell me they're your Super Bowl pick. They're going to run through the NFC. They're the juggernaut. They could win the Super Bowl. And then if they were to lose, turn around the next day, that take away some of your credibility, because if they turn around the next day and they lost on Sunday night, Monday you're going to be like, it was a good run for Brock Purdy, but we kind of expect, now all of a sudden we expected this to happen, even though we called them juggernauts. Do people who are calling them juggernauts know in the back of their mind that there is a possibility that Brock Purdy is due for a bad game? Yes, they do know that. But it hasn't happened yet, so and then they know Dallas could be due for a bad performance in the playoffs. So they're holding more strong on Dallas, and then they will overrate San Francisco, and then they'll say, well, Jalen Hurts is banged up, and we don't know about the Giants. If the Giants were to win, that's probably best case scenario for San Francisco if they win. So they're counting out every other team and giving me every reason why to excuse San Francisco if they were to lose to Dallas. And I think it'll be a tight game one way or the other. But if they were to lose to Dallas, they're going to give San Francisco the excuse of a 7th round pick quarterback. But then it's like, well, Daniel Jones and them ain't even supposed to be here. But now now we're trying to put pressure on the Giants. So we'll transition into the Giants, but Daniel Jones them ain't supposed to be here. Jalen Hurts, he's a little banged up. So we could see why Dallas is Dallas in January. How much are we going to trust them? San Francisco's the juggernaut, but then boom. So speaking of the Giants, Daniel Jones, man. Now, I'm going to shut down anything you try and say Daniel Jones is not better than Dak Prescott. We will not have that conversation because it would be a false leading conversation. So we are not going to do that. But Daniel Jones is a good quarterback, bro. Like, what I got from this year, this whole season, this man is a good quarterback. He's good. Could he be great? I don't know. But could he be good for the rest of his career? Yes, it's a possibility. And the biggest thing with the Giants is coaching matters. If you never thought coaching matters, well, then damn it, you should have watched the Jaguars and the Giants this year and know that coaching is everything. Just like with your quarterback, so is coaching. We were so out on Daniel Jones and, Danny, they didn't pick up his 5th-year option. Dayball wants to see, is this my guy for the future? Because now that I took this job, I never drafted him. I don't want my job to be attached to this guy, so I'm going to give him a year. They even brought in Tyrod Taylor for the possibilities of if I bench Daniel Jones, I have an adequate quarterback that could at least produce enough to win me a couple games to not have me go 1-16. This was an evaluation year. Is Saquon going to be healthy? Like, all the questions were about what the future is going to look like under Dayball, but no success was expected. They're in the divisional round of the playoffs. It's got to feel good as a Giants fan. I mean, because it feels, we were 12-5 and it feels great that the Cowboys are in the second round. I'm on cloud 9 right now because I don't get to enjoy this too often. I know you've had 2 Super Bowls and I understand that, but it's been a long time. This was your first playoff win since that Super Bowl win, right?
Yep.
It
since
was
the
with
Super Bowl.
it was with Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, you and me at receiver, and Walker at tight end. Like, that's who Daniel Jones had to do. Adequate offensive line, some injuries here and there, but adequate offensive line and a really good defense. There's a lot of players on that team. They lost James Bradbury, so we was like, they're not going to be that good, and this and that, and a pretty good defense. But how is it, like, just more so the playoff performance and just where you're at right now, as opposed to this? We'll talk about the Giants in the season recap, but the playoff win on Sunday and where you're at right now going into this Philly game, like, you didn't think you'd be able to sit here. I know for a fact you didn't, because we've had this conversation going before the season. You didn't think you'd be able to sit on this show and actually be able to talk about the Giants and their upcoming playoff game.
Hell no.
Until they got there. Like, now, when you got there, them beating Minnesota to me wasn't surprised, because I like the Giants versus the Vikings. But I'm saying before the season, you didn't think you'd be going into the divisional round thinking you'd be talking about your Giants playing in the divisional round against Philadelphia Eagles.
Hell no. Hell no. Mo, what I was expecting this year was just looking like a professional football team, looking competent, being improved. I said maybe they'd win 6-7 games. That's what my expectations were, but I trusted that. For the first time, I was so happy that they hired Dave. I thought they finally got the right coach after Tom Coughlin. They messed up so many times with McAdoo and with Sherman, and then that god awful, the worst hire of all hires, Joe Judge, like disaster of a hire, and Joe Judge. Daboll, to me, when they even had their candidates, I was like, I heard Daboll's name and I was like, I want him. That's who I want as the head coach of this football team. And Joe Shane, bringing Joe Shane from Buffalo too. Once they hired Shane, I was like, okay, Daboll is the guy. Because Buffalo, boom, it's gonna happen. Hired him. And press conferences are, you shouldn't go off press conferences because it's usually just typical, like, hey, we're gonna come in and we're gonna change the culture, blah 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 blah, blah, all that stuff. You know how those go. Mm-hmm. This one felt different though. It felt different, and I just felt like he's a dad. He's like, I got 6 kids. I got a whole bunch of kids, man. I'm just gonna come and we're gonna just do this thing. We just gonna work. I've been grinding and all that. We just gonna go in. We ain't gonna promise nothing, but we just gonna come in. I just like, oh, he's just a straight shooter. Okay, he feels like a dad. He just feels like he's one of the dudes. And in that first game, I bought in when he said, because the Giants were getting their rear end, they were getting their ass kicked by Tennessee. I was like, oh man, this season could go left, but they fought hard. They came back, and then when he went for 2 with Saquon, and he said, yo, Saquon, make a superstar play. He made it, and the players were all on. I was like, okay, this season might be better than expected, and it definitely was. And it starts with that, man. He believed, and then he got in Daniel Jones and said, oh, I don't care that we declined your 5th-year option. That's irrelevant, because guess what? You're a starting quarterback this season. So who cares about next season or 5 seasons from now? You're the starting quarterback of this football team this year. You're our guy. Yeah, you got declined. Okay, you worry about that next season. But guess what? You're our quarterback, and that's what he just showed the belief. Because a lot of situations like that would be awkward. Like, hey, that's not our guy and all that, and we can make it. We think about Tyrod Taylor, and I thought maybe Tyrod Taylor would be possibly, because I'm like, he's a solid quarterback, but it's just a belief, man. And he had this team believe it. He and it shows, especially in football.
You saw
good
that
coaching. Yeah, good coaching in football can change an organization very quick. And we've seen it years with this team. Bad coaching has hurt, and we probably unfairly criticized Daniel Jones because he didn't have the price, especially Joe Judge. Like, we have to give this man, some slack, because he had Joe Judge as his head coach. So like 2 years he had Joe Judge. Like, I'm so sorry, Daniel. They had to go through that. I mean, the minute Daboll was in and like I was actually teaching good concepts and offense, he was like, oh my God, I got a real coach, and it starts with Daniel Jones changing his play, and he's And listen, a lot of Daniel's good plays because of his legs. Like, let's be real. Like, he saved a lot because of them, which is very important and all that. There's still things he needs to work on, with
Yeah,
his
he's
throw
not
mechanics. He's
polished,
not
but
polished, but
he's
he's looking
promising.
like a above average NFL quarterback at the moment.
He's a
And
quarterback with a playoff win right
he's
now.
a who has a playoff win under his belt. So that helps his resume. That helps his paycheck because he is a free agent.
Mhm.
And, we're going to have
He
to
ain't
figure
going.
out.
He ain't going nowhere.
And that's still another thing they have to figure out is if he truly is their guy. Because, listen, it is still a contract year. And we've seen how this goes. But, and I think they still might franchise him, give him one more year, prove it again. And then we'll see what happens after that. Then we could talk extension. But
I think
it's been big. He's been great.
I think he's earned a 3-year contract now. 5, 6, 7, throwing the 200 million at him. No, but I think he's earned that 3 years, 110. Because it's not a coincidence that Dayball comes in. All right, we declined the 5th year option. Like you said, you come in, but it wasn't more, it was a prove it to me, but it was, I'm going to help you get there. It's not, I'm going to sit back and watch and see if you're my guy. It was, I like you and I want to keep you. But I have to make sure that when I get my hands on you, you develop the way when I got my hands on Josh Allen, he developed. And I'm not saying he's going to be Josh Allen, but I'm just saying he's developed a quarterback. We've seen a quarterback that he had in year 1 and he wasn't that good, but he was constantly improving. Daniel Jones statistically was constantly improving already. So Dayball seen a guy who is getting better, but we can't pick up his 5th year option. I'm attached to him for 2 years if he doesn't get it. Like if I put my hands on him,
it was a good move by them. It was that, and exactly how you said it was. They did all this as smart as you can possibly do. They declined it, but then they also said that doesn't mean, like I mentioned, it doesn't mean you're not our guy. We believe in you. You're our guy this year. We're going to get you right. Yeah, then we need to know if you're really our guy going forward. Because if we do the option and you're not the guy, then we're stuck. So financially, we have to do the right thing. So how they handled it was absolutely perfect. I love the way they handled it because now it was like, okay, we're not. If he did go south and he wasn't, now you're stuck with this guy for another year for whatever amount of money, and you're screwed. Now you're like, okay, now we can evaluate you. If you good, then we talk in the offseason about a contract or we franchise you or whatever, But he's been great. Offensive line improved, and think about it. You mentioned before who's starting wide receiver. Can you name starting wide receivers from the New York Giants right now? Most people can't.
Yeah, well, I mean,
like Isaiah Hodgins.
Yeah,
nobody heard of Isaiah Hodgins. I mean, there was sometimes I'm watching the game, I'm like, yo, who's this guy? Like, because there's so much turnaround on this team that sometimes I'm watching the game, I'm like, who's that guy? And the secondary too was another thing. Like, there's guys I'm like, oh wait, who's that guy? Like Fabian Moreau? Like who? Like, there's some guy I'm like, I can't, like, just secondary and the wide receiving core was just like a revolving door, like new guys after week. But I give them credit too for that, because if this was previous years, it would have just been insufferable and we'd be getting, this team would just fall apart, but they didn't fall apart. And Dexter Lawrence stepped up huge. Dexter Lawrence is one of the best interior defensive linemen in football. He's an all-pro. He was playing great football. Even Jalen Smith, your guy from Dallas, like little, the resurgence this year, because he was with us for a cup of coffee last year. Didn't start off the season when I found out. I think he was in Green Bay or whatever. But then we brought him back, and he's been a very serviceable, backer for us and all that. And injuries secondary. We finally got Dory Jackson back. We got Xavier McKinley back because losing those two was huge and all that. So it's been fun, man. This isn't fun because, like I said, we've had the worst. I think since we won the Super Bowl, I could be wrong, but it's us and the Jets for like the worst record in football during that stretch.
And I think the Bucks too, until they got Tom Brady. Like the Bucks were in that conversation
but just overall, like us and the Jets, like the two New York teams, were the worst teams in football because of just bad management and all that. But when you finally get it right, it's crazy how you get it right. And it turns around, and it's been fun watching this team this year. And I hope it's just not like how it was in 2016. I know it's a completely different team because that team was more like free agency built, when they got like Olivia Vernon and Snacks Harrison and all that. and Jack Rabbit Jenkins. It's a different team. That team was like trying to get better overnight with free agency. This team's more good drafting. We got Evan Neal. I know he had some ups and downs, but he's a tackle that they believe. Andrew Thomas,
Evan Neal
All-Pro.
rookie at the end of the day.
Yeah, and he's playing right tackle, not playing left. He's not, but
And he's a rookie.
Andrew Thomas has improved leaps and bounds. Another All-Pro. Interior defensive line's getting better. Saquon, a great season and all that. And like I said, with the receiving core, that's just absolutely buns. But Isaiah, I got to give credit to Isaiah Hodgins and even Richie James. Richie James had some moments this year where he's dropping punt returns and he's looking bad, but he made some big plays against Minnesota. Isaiah Hodgins had a big touchdown. Bellinger is a young tight end that could be something, but it feels like we're going back to the old ways of how we played football with the Giants that help us get to 2 Super Bowls and all that. We got, Thibodeau at the end, and like would love his energy. I know that's, and you did a lot of the draft stuff covering for the network at Draft Capital, and I can't wait for you guys to get that back up and get into the prospects this season. So make sure you guys check that out. But he was one of those prospects that people were like nitpicking because of he's outlandish, right? He's about the brand, he's about his not about his money, but he's a personality, and like you could see how maybe in certain locker rooms maybe that could be a hindrance on him, but it feels like in this locker room they embrace it. They let him know, okay, yeah, you need to, with the whole Snow Angels on Nick Foles, okay, maybe that's okay. You messed up. Own up to it. But he probably didn't know. He didn't own up to it completely. But, they told him, but we needed that injection of youth and like that. We needed that because we didn't have that for a while. That guy, like he has a lot of Michael Strahan in him.
And he turns into a steal because he could have been the number 1 pick in the draft.
He probably should have because he was supposed to be the number 1 pick.
He was the number 1 pick in the draft until
he's better than Trayvon Walker. I'm just keeping it real.
He was the number 1 pick in the draft until the draft analysts were able to change.
They nitpicked him and all that, and like he had his hips weren't.
They did it to Michael Parsons. They did it to Trayvon to Thibodeau.
The narrative. It's the narrative. I think the narrative more than his stiff hips and lack of pass rushing, which needs to get better. He does need a little bit more, but he has gotten better at that and all that. But it was the personality, because if he wasn't that personality, the teams were I'm sure Jacksonville were looking at it. It's like, well, Trayvon Walker doesn't have half the production of him, but he's not as noisy.
Yeah,
if he's like a tick, if he's a tick down in talent, but he's not as talkative, and like that gap is that big, and we'll take Trayvon Walker. It should have been Thibodeau. Like it should have. He was he had more production and all that. Yes, you could say, well, Trayvon's a hidden. He can be has a lot of upside and all that. He played on a Georgia team that had like 1 billion first-round picks defensively, but it's like, okay, but like I saw Trayvon do that at Oregon. For Oregon too, like not Alabama. There's not a lot of defensive studs coming out of Oregon. Like, let's be real, it's mostly offensive guys and all that. And so, like, I just think people over analyze that. And like, when we got him, and I told you there was 2 guys I wanted, right? I wanted 2 guys. I wanted Evan Neal. Yep. I wanted Evan Neal. I don't want Thibodeau, and we got it. And that never. And as a Knick fan, I never get who I want in the draft. And the Giants, they never take who I want. For the first time in years, a team took who I wanted. And guess what? Both of them have been solid. It was just Thibodeau. Like, it's just, it's crazy when they get it right. And then that's why I love Joe Shane, and that's why I love Dable. And I think these are the 2 guys that can help get us back. And I'm excited. I'm excited for this week. Against the Eagles. I think we legit have a chance to beat the Philadelphia Eagles. Yes, they kicked our rear end. They kicked our ass that first matchup. Okay. But, I think you could take some, even though the backups played in that last Eagles game and all that, their backups didn't play. They played. Their starters were playing and all that. And I think you could take some of that and be like, okay, guys, if we got our guys healthy, we got that, we can compete with this team. And the Eagles kind of slumped towards the end of the season and all that, some banged up and all that. So I think I know people are going to go with the Eagles, and I don't know what the spread is, and I don't even care what the spread is, but I think this is going to be a way closer football game than people are going to anticipate.
Yeah, and so we're going to close it out right there. We were able to talk about my Cowboys, talk about the 49ers. Didn't hit much on the Eagles, don't really care to. We'll probably talk about
There's a lot of pressure on them, right? You got to admit, there's pressure on the Eagles.
100%. All the pressures on the Eagles. The Giants are playing with house money at this point. They got a playoff win in the bag in Brian Daboll's first year. They already beat the odds. They're playing with house money. That's the scariest team. And I know a couple people over the next couple days are going to host some shows, and we'll get into like the real preview. If anything, I'll launch something Saturday morning as well and just preview the Saturday games, and then probably do the same thing Sunday. But what I took away from this whole show was Brian Daboll. Will you marry Chris? Because it sounds like
he wants kids for him. He could be my dad. Bro, I love that, man.
With Brian Daboll.
They got it right, bro. I just love it when they do things that I don't think I know everything, but I know a little bit. And I'm like, you get that draft picks right, you get the head coaching right. See what happens when you listen. You listen to me. I know something. Now I just need the Knicks to listen to me a little bit, and we can get this. We could see the Knicks. We could have been a championship team 2 years ago, but you know what? They don't listen to me, so that's why we're in the right. But
so yeah,
I know a little bit.
But yeah, so on that note, you get Chris. Let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah, follow me off the ball pod. It's where I'm most active. I got I bust out a few shows this week. Last few weeks, bust out like 5 shows. I took like a few weeks off. But bust out a bunch of shows. I got Get a Bucket podcast probably coming out this week. We'll do one, me and Kev. I got a show coming out with Global Scouting. We were talking, and he's one of the best draft minds in the business, and I'm gonna have him on Saturday. And we're gonna talk all things NBA draft. So that's gonna be a real fun show. Check that out. We're gonna dive into all the prospects and kind of and I get his thoughts on like the evolution of scouting, how it's changed from, and I know Stu is doing something with the quarterbacks, and I had an idea in my head, like just wanted to ask scouts, like how has scouting changed over the years? How have you looked at this guy from 2007, and how would you view him maybe in, now in 2023, or, and just how has the mindset changed? And has a player changed? Has Luka changed the way we look at players? So going to dive into all that. And obviously the 2023 class, beyond just Wemby and Scoop, we're going to dive into more of the guys that, we might think might be some steals. So check that out. Go check out offtheballnetwork.com, OTB_network. Elon gave us the verification via $8.99 per month payment. So but it still looks cool though. I don't care what anyone says. It does look cool to see the little blue check marks. But yeah, follow us there. Make sure to follow all the dope content creators at Off the Ball Network. We got Nick's about to drop an article. That should be another good one. And but go to offtheballnetwork.com. Check out the great sponsors we have. Go check out NordVPN. Go check out SeatGeek. All the great sponsors. Go on the website and you'll see all the sponsor stuff. Click on it. Helps us out. So appreciate you having me on, Mo.
Yeah, 100%. And as always, y'all know you can follow me at Mo_Cheese15 on Twitter, at UpNFlamez Pod on Instagram. Field Stormers was not coming out this week. It'll come out next week. We kind of were waiting on like the Jim Harbaugh news and stuff because there's not a lot of news. We'll talk a little bit about recruiting as well on there. Some guys have made, there's been some transfers that we want to talk about. There's been some guys that we're waiting on to make an announcement that we
want. That's another thing, man. Cormani McClain, he ghosted Miami. He's going to Colorado, that son of a bitch.
Yeah, so
he was supposed this is another rant. Well, quick rant. Miami went to his school. He didn't show up. And he was supposed to commit a few weeks back, right? Had the thing and all. His mama went on Twitter or whatever, and he ain't signed. I'm like, you know what? And then they dropped him on the rankings big time. I'm over him. Go to Colorado, bro.
Go. It's one of those. Go to Colorado, and we'll talk about the Jaden Rashada situation.
Here's another one. Go. You left us, and you flipped to Florida, and then you realized they broke. Okay, don't come back to us because we got money now.
Yeah.
So, goodbye.
That'll be an interesting story because that'll be like a lot very very different takes on what NIL means, because it can gain you a lot, but it can also lose you a lot when you can promise you trying to cash checks.
$1 million.
You're trying to write checks
It
that you
shows that
can't cash.
schools, that some schools are brokies. A lot of
Yeah,
brokies.
but I mean, $13 million was crazy. But
That's
that'll
crazy,
be
though.
Stormers
That's crazy, bro.
next week. We'll definitely talk about that.
Especially
So I
for
appreciate
him. It's not like it's art.
Yeah, but I appreciate everybody for tuning in. I appreciate everybody for listening. On that note,